Hi team, so today's episode, it is me flying solo again. I was going to talk about something completely different, but ended up going on a tangent and telling a story about an injury that I've sustained. And even towards the end though, and I'll be interested to hear what your guys' response are, maybe some of your comments, is I ask a very intriguing question, and I've asked it to a couple of people already, and it's kind of stopped them in their tracks. Because you really have to reflect, and then whatever thought comes to mind gets you thinking even deeper, and you're just like, why is that? Why am I aware of that or concerned about that? So take a listen that goes from my story into a bit of like a 5-minute review lesson. I do have a scratchy throat. I apologize. I'll try and edit it out the best I can, and then question at the end. Apart from that, if you are new to the podcast, the video, please go to www.identityhuman.com and sign up to the waitlist for the free 5-day challenge. I'm going to be starting that in like 3 weeks' time, and I'm so pumped to get going again. Right, enjoy the episode. Right, welcome back. I'm just testing if the mic's working, to the Identity Human podcast with your host, Dom. And not Ray. She's still busy. That woman is incredible. Now, I have some notes, and we missed last week, and I must say it's on purpose. I think sometimes there was just, sometimes you just don't have to be inspired all the time. And I'm very aware of, if you listen to the podcast, I'm not just going to tick a box. That's not how I would define consistency. Consistency's got to be doing something that brings you value and is intentional and is making a difference. And I think last week being off, and today it's also going to be released a couple of hours afterwards. Funny story, but I was trying to record yesterday, and I was going to record in the afternoon. It was kids' sports day, and I was watching the kids, and I don't know if you remember Project Thor. I'm currently 123 kgs, which is like 13 kgs heavier than my normal set point. I haven't run for 6 weeks. And Father's Day the dad's race happened to be a thing that some people might or might not get competitive in. And I wasn't going to do it. I sat there and I said, I'm not doing it. I know exactly what happens. All that happens is dads don't warm up, and then they try and win it, and then they get injured. And in my head, I'm like, idiots, right? Right? You've seen the clips of the guys falling at the finish line or pulling up. And last year, I saw Dad pull both of his quads just 10 minutes before the finish. And I was adamant. I said, I'm not doing it this year. Anyway, we were sitting with family members, and one family member was like, but you've got to do it for the kids because it's a memory. Like, they see you running, and it creates really cool memories for them. And I was like, that's a good point. I can't really argue with that. So me and Ray both went from I'm not doing it to both doing it. Anyway, I walk over to the start line, and I was like, and that same family member was like, but it's not about winning, just participate. So I was like, okay, well, it is about winning. Obviously it is. Don't you know my background? That's like the ego speaking, right? So get to the start line, and in my head I was like, only going to jog this. It's okay. And I also said to the dads, I was like, has anyone warmed up? And obviously I had been watching, no one had warmed up. And I was like, guys, we know how this goes. No one's warmed up, someone gets injured, let's just not rush it. So anyway, the whistle goes, and I start to run. And I'm not going to lie, the previous 2 years that I've run it, yes, I have run it previously, I didn't ever feel powerful, right? But something was different this year. Something was, when I took the strides, I was like, oh, it feels good. Because I hadn't run, I was fresh, I had new muscles. Well, not new muscles, like bigger muscles, right? So I was like, oh, this feels good. I feel like, when a boat is going in the water and then you get on, I think it's called onto the plane, and it skims. I felt like I was doing that. I wasn't skimming, obviously, but I felt really good. And I was like, okay. So some guys got off the start line a bit quicker than I did. and I was catching them, and I was like, oh, they're not drawing away. Like, this feels good. So I was like, oh, there we go. And I'm wearing, unfortunately, my casual shoes are Zero shoes with an X. This is not throwing it out there. I was trying them out, slightly different to Viva Barefoots, which means that there was no heel. And I did speak to a running specialist, and they're like, hey, you don't need to have zero. What you must do is you have a heel, but wider, right? So I know that these are now shoes I've never run in. My body's probably not used to that. Plus the 123 kgs that I have on my frame, which is used to running, sprinting at 110, 112. And I'm neck on neck with one of the dads in lane number 1. And I swear, I was like, okay, I'm going to get this. And about 10 meters to the end, my hamstring just and I was like, oh, I've got video, I'm not going to put it up here, of me pulling up. And yeah, I think I tore my hamstring. So I'm not going to lie. Okay, so actually, let me take you through this. I was going to talk about something different tonight. I'll take you through all the emotions that happened there because it seems so ridiculous. It seems so insignificant. Because it's a dad's race, guys. Like, it's a dad's race that I let my competitive edge. So it's the high-performing mindset that, like, I'm not competitive, it's fine. And then once I'm in that race, I'm like, okay, I can't not do this, right? The chimp takes over. It just wants to, it's like, we can call it ego or whatever you want. So anyway, I'm going to remind you, like, I'm going to lay the scene again. I, since January, have been doing Project Thor. Now, guys, if you don't know Project Thor, since January, I have 4 children, my youngest being 2.5. It was in January, right? I previously would not have been able to wake up. I was trying to wake up early to go and gym. I'd been trying to gym regularly for like maybe 1.5 years, and I hadn't been able to, maybe once or twice a week at most. And when I say gym, I mean 5 minutes in on the bench press, 3 sets of 11 at 7 kgs, and I was like, all right, I'm just starting something, right? So that was about my workload. I did, yes, run every Saturday, and did, okay, I know this sounds ridiculous as I added up. I've done London Marathon twice, and we did 3 peaks, so there was a lot of training for specific things. I'll see where this is going. But there was no consistency in place for no big challenges. And come January, I was like, oh, I'm going to do my Masogi for this year. It's Project Thor, which is get as close to Chris Hemsworth or Thor's body type as possible. And we'll see. So I've been training 4 to 5 times a week consistently since January. And when I say consistently, I've missed 1 day. And it's because I traveled to Hong Kong with the rugby guy, who hopefully will be a guest soon. And so it's a lot, right? So you put in a lot of work. And pre the race, my whole reason was I'm 123 kgs. I'm at the peak of my bulking. I haven't done cardio. I know what this means. And I know that if I get injured, like what that does, it not only takes me out of training, but it also takes me out of helping other kids, which then, like, we're running a pretty tight ship at the moment. It just adds a lot of stress. So back to, I was going to tell you all, I finished the race, pulled my hammy, and I mean, to add insult to injury, the one kid was like, that was meant to be handing out the place cards, had a second in their hand. It's not like, she was like, I'm sorry, I didn't see, can I just give you? And I was like, in my head, I was like, I was like, don't worry about it, it doesn't really matter. And I was like trying to fight back these tears of frustration, anger, inner turmoil. And I was just like head down, didn't even like after a dad's race, you like look around, like people have the cheapish smile, like they're just lost and they're trying to make it seem like it doesn't really matter, but it really does. I was in the 8th lane, in the end lane. As I finished, just turned around and just walked through the back thing and was just like head down. Some people may have been like, oh, well done, you're amazing. I didn't see that. If I did, I'm sorry. If you did, sorry. Thank you. I mean, I don't know. And there was obviously like my mom, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and Ray all waiting. They were waiting for me to come back and obviously didn't know I'd pull my hamstring. And we're like, oh, did you win? Did you win? And I was just like, you could just see, like Ray was like, oh, what's wrong? And I was just like, I think I pulled my hamstring. And I just walked. I didn't even take a chair. I didn't even, because I was so frustrated. And in that, like, I've obviously reflected on it. Like, I walked all the way to the car, and like, obviously my mom's there trying to help us. Like, Mom, not now. I don't want to talk about it. Ray's also like, oh my love, I'm so sorry. I know, she was like, I know how much this means to you. But I did, like, I think it was twofold. It was, I really want to achieve Project Thoughts. Like I don't know what it is, but it's this, I've not been able to be this consistent with anything in my entire life where it's not accountable to anyone else, if that makes sense. So it's the lesson of the harder you work at something, the more it means, the harder it is to let go. And I suppose the other side of it is the scarier it is to lose. If that makes sense. And that's kind of like same as love and relationships and friendships and business and everything like that. It's like you work so hard at something that even something small, I was like, I hope it's not tendon torn off the bone, because I was like hamstring. My mind was gone there. I was like, oh, I can't do like. I was like, oh no, I'm at the peak of my bulking phase, and I've just potentially injured my hamstring really badly. That means I'm not going to be able to do any of the shredding that was coming up. I was looking forward to the shredding. Like I hate it. If you guys have never done any bulking, like I'd say, if you have diet issues, bulk, force feed yourself for 6 weeks and watch how much you hate it by the other side of it. Like that's where I was at. Like I was looking forward to next week where we're like shredding. I don't have to eat loads. I can go back to fasting. I can do all those things. And now all of a sudden I was like, I'm not going to be able to lose this weight. I'm not going to be able to, or if I do, it'll be the wrong way. And it's like the whole year was just starting to crumble. Interesting. So there was also an element of, and I realized this is like, there's probably still a lot of reactive, explicit memories from rugby and how I used to react not in some seasons. So sometimes you get injured in rugby and you're just at the end of your tether and it's like game after game, and it's almost a relief to get injured, if that makes sense. Not in a bad way, but it's just that's the only way I'm going to get a break is if I get injured, because there were a couple of times I hurt elbows and I was like, oh, I know that this is maybe a 4-week injury, and I can really refocus back, because it was the only way I was going to get a break. Because we used to play back to back to back to back to back, and I was never the kind of person that did nothing in the off season, so it was just continuous. And then there were some injuries that obviously the closer you get to a final or a big game, or where you've come in off an off season and you've worked your ass off, like you've sacrificed weddings, you've sacrificed sitting on the beach and chilling, you've sacrificed everything that's a comfort that you should be enjoying, just being in the moment. You have to put that aside to make sure that that person that's potentially coming to take your place in the next season has to be bloody good at what they do to take your place. And then those injuries, when you get those injuries, those are the bad ones, right? I think the ones that for me were the worst is probably when I injured my wrist, but that was because I knew that I had to call the end of my career rather than playing it out. Probably a different story. Maybe that'll be interesting. If you guys want to hear that story, let me know in the comments, and I'll take you through that story. Because I essentially did the ACL with my wrist and had to call my own career rather than play it out, because it was one of those where you can force yourself to play through it, or you get the surgery. Like I said, another story. So anyway, you bring in, there's all of these explicit memories and past feelings that just flooded back in when I had that hamstring injury, and I couldn't. That's what I was saying. Like some of them were just really big emotions. I was like, wow, where did these come from? So I walked all the way to the car, drove, and I was like, what would I tell someone coming through the course now? And I had to keep reminding myself, because at that stage where I got so, not overwhelmed, because I don't think I was overwhelmed, but there was a big feelings and emotions. I was like, flip, I've got this course called Unshakable, and you're meant to set people up to really be able to deal with what life brings at you, always calm, composing. And I had this thing in the back of my head that I even say in the course is it's not about being perfect all the time. It's about how quickly you bounce back when things are wrong or aren't going your way. And that's been a real big lesson for me in my journey and all that kind of stuff and that epitomizes high performance, right? Is if you watch a game of the world's best athletes, mistakes happen, but then it's how quickly they bounce back. And that was the same. It was a really good lesson for me now, because I usually would have been like, oh, you see, because integrity is really important. I'm just a charlatan. I didn't manage that situation perfectly. I could have just gained perspective like that. And just realized that it was just a hamstring injury and moved on. But then I was like, actually, what would I tell someone else? We're like, okay, first of all, realize that this is part of life. The downs are there. The second of all, feel the emotions. Like you have to actively or intentionally, intentional is a big word, intentionally feel these things. You have to intentionally let them out, because if you don't, you bury them. And what I've learned is if you bury things, they only come back to get you. Sorry, I need to go get some water. Hopefully we're going to clip this out and see it. If we don't, well, that's my editor. Yeah, intentional is a big word. So you have to intentionally feel things. You have to make space for emotions, both good and bad. Bad, I'd say. Most of us will see them as bad emotions, but they are just natural emotions that we all feel. So I allowed myself to make space for them, and I had to intentionally allow myself to feel the emotions and actually work with them. And I quickly realized, I was like, actually, it's probably not torn off the bone. Thanks ChatGPT for making me realize that if I could straighten my leg, it's not that bad, and I could quite easily. So right, okay, so we are just to a tear. That's okay. How many days? I was like, okay, maybe if I have to take a max of a week off a project or training, would that be that bad? No, just add a week on the end. I don't have a final coming up. I'm able to just extend it and just keep going. Okay, cool. That's fine. Right. So I watched a 10-minute video on something, can't remember what it was, then got up and sat at my desk and just carried on working on a couple of things. And I was like, actually, that was a really good exercise. I was like, what's the universe trying to tell me? Well, first of all, the lessons are trust your instinct and don't bend to the pressures, even the emotional pressures, and not in like in the greatest kind of way, the sentimental things that could happen that get in the way of what you're doing now. So I knew I shouldn't have done that race, but I did. Anyway, it's ended up in a great story. So maybe the lesson is just do them anyway and deal with whatever comes your way. And then secondly, it's okay if you're struggling. No, it's okay if you're feeling down. It's okay, and it's normal, and it's a part of life. We somehow have built up these personas, masks, identities that have to have it all together all the time. Now, throat. We have to have it all together all the time. Now, yes, there are times and places and spaces when you do have to have your stuff together. That comes with a responsibility, say, within leadership, within family, that you do. But if we bring in performance elements into that time, space, place, context, then even in that time, space, and place and context, you have to make time to feel things and not be all okay. But again, I think the difference is making all of these things intentional. So if you have an intentional schedule to feel blur, you have someone as your go-to to feel blur and talk about it and let things out and find perspective. That's what I think is missing these days, is we all try and just crack on and bury whatever it is that we feel. There is a time, a space, and a place where we have to carry certain responsibilities towards others, and we have to have it all together. But even in those, we have to be intentional in letting ourselves deflate, whether that's a person, a place, a space. But we don't have to do that alone. And I somehow think far too many people, we're still trying to do it all ourselves. We're still trying to do it. And when we've achieved, success in business or as a father or a mother or with a family or in life, then we'll talk to a therapist, a coach, a confidant, or someone to help with these things I'm feeling. But actually, I'm also not going to give myself the permission for these feelings to be felt because I shouldn't be feeling them. It's like, no, you should be feeling them. Just be intentional about when you do. And if you're intentional about when you do, you give them space to come out. We don't only want to go through life feeling the happy things. It's unrealistic. Because if by, I suppose, nature's law, where there's a positive, there's a negative, where there's a dark, there's a light, this is the principle of duality. Where there is a happy, there is a sad. And the more aware you become of feelings and emotions and ups and downs, the more you realize that you have them. That's awareness, right? You're no longer numb to your feelings. Once you start to go on a healing journey, once you start to go on even a performance journey, you will realize that there are ups. And that's, as long as you can intentionally place those ups more or less the right time, It then gives you time and space to intentionally place the downs at a time that they can be fully felt, fully embraced and allowed. So like, let's call that from a performance point of view, playing your match and then recovering, and then playing your match and then recovering. And then you've got training and you've got some meetings and you've got down days. All of that is put into physical performance, and it should be for mental performance too. So I hope you've enjoyed my story, but it's completely not what I was going to talk about today. I mean, too long didn't listen. TLDL. I ran the dad's race and pulled my hamstring, just like any other dad, and I'm in that league of injured dads that pulled the race. They had an injury for no reason. And by the way, I asked Monty, he was the younger kid's sports day, if he enjoyed my dad's race, because he was the only reason I ran. He said, Daddy, I didn't watch your race. I never saw it. I was like, okay, great. So the whole reason I ran it, and he wasn't even watching. Thanks, ego. And I want to end on this question, right? Let's say you're watching this and your name is John or Jane. So this question is to you, whatever your name is, but I'm going to put John or Jane in the question because I have to put the name in. If the world was full of Johns, or if the world was full of Janes, i.e. if the world was full of you, so everyone in the world was you, what would you be scared of happening? That question came to my mind while I was waiting for my kids to do sports day. And it would be very interesting to see what gets revealed from yourself. Is it positive? Is it negative? And how does it reflect into what you think about yourself? Okay. So I was going to talk about ice baths tonight, but my story completely went on a tangent. So, excuse the scratchy throat, and I hope it was okay to get through, and I hope you enjoyed my story. Thank you very much for watching, and I really appreciate you, and we're going to start to get some guests on. So, Ubuntu, we are who we are through others, and I'll work on me for you, if you can work on you for me. Have a great day. That's coffee. What's wrong with my throat? Coffee, tea, the cat's in the cupboard and can't catch me.